call, so we won't do that again, and it's being recorded. But for the recording, why don't we go over again? Tom Frank, chair. Then Adrian. Everybody just go and say your name so it'll be recorded.
Linda Sarnioki
Jennifer
from
Fells.
Weston.
Okay, Adrian.
Lisa Barron
Whoops.
from Milton.
Lisa Barron. Okay. James is not on yet. Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say your name, whole name, so then and where you're from, so we have
Okay.
that on the recording.
Jennifer Fells, Bennington.
Okay, and James is in the other room.
Good morning, Adrian Katz.
There you go. Adrian now is on. Okay, thank you, Adrian.
Also, we can see the video.
It's very sort of echoey, Adrian. It's hard to understand you.
Yeah, you get a look closer to wherever the mic is. And they're in the conference room, you said, Kathy?
Yes, Adrian's in the conference room here at the department at 60 Washington Street, and James
Right.
is not in the conference room today. I see his name on the call, but we haven't heard him speak yet. So,
Okay.
James, if you can hear us, I'd recommend calling in for speaking because we're not hearing you yet.
Yeah, I think because we have two different systems operating, we have like here, and then we have it's very lovely sound here. It might not be as good.
Adrian,
Yeah,
why don't you
and-
come into my office because I'm right here and you could sit nearby and then you don't have to worry about the sound issue. Well, and Josh can work on that. Okay. I'll get the door.
Because that conference room is bad for sound under good conditions. It echoes and everything else. So that's good. Okay, so we have that, and then I'm going to follow my.
A little squishy. Okay. Tom, were you just
Okay.
asking for the department staff and others on the call?
Yeah, and
to
now
introduce themselves?
the rest of the folks that are here.
Sure.
From
I'm Catherine Delnau. I'm the state librarian, and just a note, it's the 8th of October meeting.
It is the 8th, right? Okay.
I was
I
getting
have been
confused about it
missing
too, Tom.
back and forth.
And now I'll call on Jeanette.
Jeanette Schaefer, I assume that is. Hello.
Hi, Jeanette's our assistant state librarian. Jess Leal.
Hi, Jess Leal, executive staff assistant.
Mark McClary is here with us today.
Good morning, Mark McClary, Vermont Department of Libraries, Grants Administrative Manager.
Karen
Mark, I'm
Graff.
so pleased to see your face. I've spoken
Yes,
with you
that's
on
right.
the phone. How nice.
And
Hi.
Karen Gravlin.
Good morning, Karen Gravlin, Able Librarian, Consultant for Inclusive Services.
Kevin Unrath.
Good morning. I'm the consultant for library operations.
Josh Muse, we've seen on camera in the other room, but I don't know if we've heard Josh much today. He may be able to say hi or not right now. I'll call on April Shaw.
Good morning, April Shaw, Librarian of Government Services at Department of Libraries.
Lauren
there,
Kelly.
Good morning. I'm Lauren Kelly, Technical Services Consultant and Librarian at the Department of Libraries.
Great. So I think
Okay.
that's everyone now.
Okay, welcome everybody. Okay, and I'm trying to be in order. Okay, are there any changes to the agenda that were set out? If no changes to the agenda, we'll go to number 3. Are there any members of the public present that would like to make any comments? I didn't hear anybody, You're checking the list there and see if there's anybody we don't know. Hello.
I don't see any
Oh,
other members of the public, Tom.
No, nobody else there. Okay, we'll go to the next. Okay, now we have the July minutes. They were sent out, and may I say, Jess and Kathy, that's an excellent way of doing it. You just have it there. And then if anybody wants to see absolutely the whole thing in the recording, just press that little button. And it'll take you if there's any questions over the minutes. Does anybody have any additions or changes to the agenda? Not the agenda, to the minutes of the July meeting. Okay, if not, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve them. Excuse me. I move we approve the minutes of the July meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there a
Linda?
second to that? Okay,
I'll
Linda,
second that.
Second.
and say, pick one of the people.
I think Adrian was first, so we'll have
Okay,
Adrian be our second.
Okay, Adrian's the second. Okay, now I should ask at this point, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? And then said, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed can rewrite them, right, Jess? No.
So we saw
So
Lisa.
any
and-
abstentions?
Oh.
Everybody was here last time, so. Any abstentions from the approval of the minutes or any denials? Opposed? Okay, hearing none, then we'll say it's passed unanimously. Okay, and there was a comment there?
Oh, I was just making sure that you knew that Jennifer had raised her hand as an aye vote.
As an aye vote. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Tom, can I ask a question about this? Because we can't actually hear from James Saunders.
Yeah.
So should we mark James as an abstention and that the minutes passed with?
At this, and hopefully James will get, yeah, we can leave that there and then you can make a comment in the minutes that we're unable, he is on, but is unable to communicate with us.
And Josh, if you can put the call-in number for James in the chat, and then also if you could call James, that would be helpful to try to connect him with us audioly by audio. That's not a word.
Auditorily?
Telephonically.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because that goes video and sound. Yes, okay, that's a good one, telephonic. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, now we have the changes to our bylaws. We had gone all over them in the July meeting and made the recommendations, the changes that were there and that were posted, which is necessary. They had to be doing the meeting prior to this one. Okay, comments about the bylaws? Looked good to me. And once again, I thank you for every place you didn't write them out. See, according to public law, section, and it referred to that, which is a really good idea than spelling them all out and wasting paper.
Okay. One comment would be to change in the section for meetings, notice, and committees. There is a address, and it looks like it appears to be half of the Department of Libraries in Barry, but also says Waterbury. So maybe that was like, so that edit needs to be Barry instead of Waterbury, and make sure that this is correct. It says regular meetings of the board shall be held online with an option to attend on site. At 60 Washington Street, Suite 2, and it should be Barry, not Waterbury.
Absolutely. And the zip code needs to be corrected to 05641. Thank you, Adrian. Sorry.
Adrian, good catch. Wow. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I was
got
reading
his,
the
um,
bylaws, not looking at, I figured they'd get the address right.
Right then. That's
Sorry.
probably AI said Waterbury. Oh, Barry. Okay.
No, that was
James
me
just
living
joined.
in Waterbury. That's my fault.
Oh, okay.
It's half my work
that's it.
address and half my home address.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we can meet.
I can't blame it on AI. Right.
Cody.
And then James is on. Can you hear us? And let's see if we can hear you, James. Okay. It said that he came on.
Josh, I think you might have seen that Josh put the phone number for the Teams call in the chat because Josh wrote, "Hi, James." So you may have seen something there, but I do see James's.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they can. Thank you.
Oh,
Again, I just want to
thank you,
answer
James.
all the time. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Can you all
And
still hear
James,
me?
did you hear us on the minutes?
Yes.
I know that I looked over the minutes and there were a couple of corrections and I was able to send them into Jessica.
Okay.
Not
I guess
this
maybe I'm-
time. I think that was the prior minutes, James. These, I don't believe we had corrections on.
Okay.
Because we decided last meeting that we would do all the corrections in the meetings rather than offline.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had them and then picked up. So understanding that, do you approve the minutes? We all did. We had you as an abstention, but we can now have you if you approve.
Yes, I do approve them. Yes.
Okay, there we go. That works. Okay, very good. Now we can go to the bylaws. And as I was saying, very good again, because it referred to all of the sections and not in there. So if anybody wants to know, they're free to go and see exactly what the law and the regulations say. Okay. I read them over again today, read them before and again this morning, and I did not see any problems with them. Anybody else? Corrections, suggestions, whatever?
I can't raise my hand exactly for some reason, but I did see a correction.
Okay.
And I think it's Article 4, Section 1. If I'm not mistaken, that it says the meetings option on site, and it's got at Waterbury 05676. And I'm wondering, should that be Berry?
Yep.
Yes, it should be.
Yes, we've noted that it should say Washington Street, Suite 2, Barry, Vermont. Barry, comma, Vermont 05641.
Okay,
Thanks, James.
you're welcome.
And Adrian. Adrian had the same. You and Adrian are on a good proofreading wavelength. We appreciate it.
It used to be Mr. Post that had all of them. The comma was in the wrong place. Yeah. Yeah. So we have some people, a couple sharp eyes here. Very good. Okay. Any other corrections? And I'd like to see, yeah, it is the annual meeting. And I would point out that my term is up in January. And say, and Kathy, since we have a minute or two, how we'll do the same thing as we did before, post that position?
Yes, we might want to talk about this in the state librarian's report, maybe.
Okay. Okay. So we can wait
I'll
till
add that to
there.
my comments there so we
Okay.
can.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So this is going very rapidly here. So making that one correction for Waterbury, are there any other comments on the bylaws? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the bylaws as they were presented to us?
Yep, this is Lisa. I make a motion to approve the bylaws as they've been presented to us today.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, any additional comments, corrections, or anything?
Can I ask a procedural question? Should we be, should the motion be to approve with the revision in Article 4 to the town of Barry?
Probably.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fine with the correction.
Or is it City of Barry?
I don't know, just to Barry.
Okay.
To Barry and the zip code.
Yeah, with the zip code 05641.
Right. Okay, with that, with the motion and the correction to changing Waterbury to Barry in 05461, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I'm missing a couple.
So we heard
Any
an aye from Adrian, from Jennifer, from Lisa, and Linda, did you say aye as well? I didn't hear that one, and James.
I did say aye.
Okay, James said
Okay,
aye.
okay, James.
Linda needs to unmute. Maybe press the space bar, Linda, and see if that works. Yeah.
Magic.
Oh, Linda, press this. She's got Linda's got a thumbs up, but I think if you press and hold the space bar, Linda, we'll be able to hear you.
Oh, was the internet issue maybe?
So she's gesturing approval.
Okay, gesturing approval. Okay, thumbs up, right. Okay, so it has been approved
Sorry.
unanimously, and Rick has not come on, right?
No, he has not.
Mr. Pitts, okay.
For the minutes, I have a question though. Who was the second? I know that Lisa motioned to approve, but I missed the
Was it
second.
James?
That was
Yeah, it was
James.
me.
Okay.
James,
Yes.
thank you.
James.
I want to be
James
sure I
second.
get that right. This is important.
This is important, yes. Okay. And you have a lot to report, I know, so.
I do, and I need to apologize. We've been so busy with the announcement of the capital grants and then all of the ensuing press squished into every single waking moment, it feels like, that I just wrote my report yesterday evening and into this morning. So I sent it to board members. I sent the report document as an attachment to the Outlook calendar invite for today's meeting. Josh Muse is going to post it online, but since I didn't share it in advance and nobody had the opportunity to read it, I'll just review all of the content in it and then I'll take questions.
And
Does
I
that
think we
sound-
have plenty of time for that, yes.
We do, yeah,
So-
it's 10:21 right now.
Yep.
So we're very ahead of schedule, which is great.
Yes.
I wanted to share some staffing updates. This month we have some good news and we have some sad news. So I will first share the good news and then share the sad news. On October 21st, the department will welcome a new grant specialist who will support the capital projects. That staff member will report directly to Mark McClary, who's here on the call today, and we'll share her name publicly once she's on board. But that position has been vacant for quite a long time, and we're really happy to have it staffed up, to have the team staffed up. We are also recruiting right now for a program technician 2 for the Able Library. The person in that position will report to Karen and work with Sarah in Able. I think folks on this call are likely aware that Wendy Clark, who was in our team for many years in Able Library, took a position elsewhere in the state within walking distance of her home. So we were sad to see Wendy go, but we're really excited. We've got great candidates for this position, and we hope to welcome someone within the next month to that position. And now for the sad news. October 15th is coming very soon, and it will be April Shaw's final day with our department. April has done great work in her role as the government services consultant, and she has few different areas of her position. She provides reference services and she's a crackerjack reference librarian. I hear compliments from folks all the time when she has been reached out to for help about the service she provides. She also does outreach to state of Vermont staff to encourage them to use our online services and to share what we do in the department and get them engaged in using their library as state of Vermont employees. And she also oversees and has really grown and shepherded the interlibrary loan program and the courier grant program, through which books and other library materials move all around the state. And in addition, she's done things like launching a state of Vermont employees book club where they read the Vermont Reads books. And she also has a really quick wit and a dry sense of humor. And she's a lot of fun to eat lunch with and be with in general. And she's well liked by all of her colleagues and library staff around the state. So we're really going to miss April, and we wish her luck as she moves over to a position with the Agency of Digital Services. And for the board members who have been on the board for a while, you may know that April had also stepped into the breach when you needed help with geographic naming in the past. So board members who have been here for a while had a close relationship with April in that way. And we're going to miss April. April's left and come back before. Who knows? Maybe we'll see her again. But I wish April the best in her new position, and just know that we'll miss her. And I'm sure that the board will too.
And I will also say with April, with all the transitions from Scott to Jason and to Kathy, she helped hold it together for the board members. As you said, you can always call April. Hey, April, what do I do? And she said, well, this is what, okay, thank you. Saved for another day. Yes.
There are some big shoes to fill. But we always want folks to go where their heart leads them. And so I know that there's lots of great stuff in April's future, wherever she is. And I hope she'll stay in the state of Vermont as a state of Vermont employee, which is great. So I'm going to follow up that sad news for us with some happy news, I hope, which is that the department announced the recipients of $15.9 million in competitive grants to 14 public libraries in Vermont on September 30th. Those are the grants from the U.S. Department of Treasury through the American Rescue Plan. Board members who have been here for a long time, you've probably heard multiple state librarians talking about this. Interim state librarian Tom McMurdo had this all in flight when I arrived in 2022. These funds are funds for the state of Vermont. They are in the same bucket of funding as the Vermont Community Broadband funds that increase connectivity around the state, and also some funds for ANR, I believe, for parks and connectivity at parks. But this bucket of funding, the 16.4 million, supports the program of the Capital Project Fund that's related to investing in public community spaces, including public libraries, to ensure that folks in the communities served have access to the internet for the purposes of work, education, and telehealth. So these are in direct response. These grant funds are available in direct response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, really bearing in mind that during the COVID public health emergency, we had situations where many Vermonters could not access the internet because the libraries were not open to the public. So they couldn't go inside the buildings and access the internet. So while those of us who are fortunate enough to have the internet at home and have high-speed connections so that we could continue going to work online, teleworking, or remotely go to school or visit with our doctors, the situation for Vermonters who didn't yet have broadband, or who may still not have broadband, and many Vermonters still don't have access in their homes, is quite different. And in that context, the public library is the place for people to go to use those resources to just perform daily functions. In addition to telehealth and education and work, we know people are doing things like connecting with families and in other parts of the state, throughout the country, or worldwide. We know that they're doing banking and doing all kinds of other things online. And some folks use their own personal devices, but some folks are reliant upon the computer equipment in the libraries, in addition to being reliant upon the high-speed connections. So even for people who have access to the internet at their house, they may not have affordable options for the internet at their house. And so this is a program that really bridges that digital divide for Vermonters. And we're really pleased to make the announcements of the awards. We issued a press release, and I have to say, I've been run ragged. We're going to be putting up a list of all of the press so far, but just for a taste of it, I've been interviewed by Vermont Public, VT Digger, 7 Days, WCIX, I think aired a story last night. Got an interview with Stowe at 12 o'clock, so it's great if we're running ahead. That means I might actually get a little break before. And we're just here, in addition to the press that the department is fielding, a lot of the local libraries that have received the grants are having folks reach out to them. So the Hardwick Gazette has run a story. There have been radio stories. There was one on WTSA. We're seeing so much enthusiasm. The St. Albans Messenger, for example, is another one that we're aware of. So we're seeing a lot of press come locally to the library directors and trustees who are doing a wonderful job of explaining the strength of their applications. I do have to say there were so many qualified applications, and it's a shame that we don't have more resources to grant out right now. We had 71 libraries apply, and we could only give out the funds we have. So if anybody out there has deep pockets or friends in high places and wants to grant money over to the Department of Libraries, just let us know. We also will be launching a second grant program in 2025. I do want to share with the board that at one point we thought we would immediately just open up the next round of applications for the HUD funds. But what we realize now is that we have more work to do to support the libraries that have received the funds. So Mark and his team and I, and really the leadership team, Jeanette and Tom, have been involved the whole time in developing the program. But Mark and I will be working really closely with Guidehouse, who is supporting the department in some of the administrative nuts and bolts. So we have let the awardees know, the subrecipients, because these are federal funds, we've let the 14 subrecipient libraries know that we are in the process of developing the reimbursement process. We want to ask for sufficient information that our audits will be in order if somebody looked at our files from the federal government, and not make it burdensome at the same time to those departments. So getting the balance right with support from Guidehouse and developing the reimbursement process and the reporting process, the quarterly reporting process. So that is what Mark and I are working on now, and what his new staff member will come in and help us with. Once we have those folks set up and that's routinized, then we'll turn to the HUD guidance and develop the HUD program. We have lots of possible ways that we might administer that program. We could make, $10 million grants, but we could also look at some smaller size grants to spread the money more around the state. Smaller discrete amounts, and then maybe a couple of larger dollar values. But again, this is a great opportunity for Vermont's libraries. The sad thing is, of course, we don't have, $1.5 million for every library in the state. I would love to support them all this way, but we need to work with what we've got and stick with our budget. And these grants that we've made will be really impactful. We've got projects that include bringing restrooms to libraries. We've got projects that include moving a library from where it is in Johnson, where it has flooded repeatedly, to higher ground, to a place that has not flooded during these historic floods, which is really a huge thing. The FEMA help that Johnson might get is related to restoring the building, but not addressing the fact that the building remains in a floodplain. So thinking about the impact of that. And then up north in the islands, we have a whole new library that will be built that will make it so that the community can instead of fitting 4 to 8 people, and that's the library staff's estimate. And I guess it kind of depends on how big the people are and how much they move around, if you can fit 4 of them or 8 of them. But they'll be moving into a larger library that can accommodate 40 people. So imagine for the first time, you could have a class come in all at once to use the library and to get connected with their librarian. So these are the types of things that the money is going toward. We've got the full list of projects in the press release and listed on the department's webpage. In the coming probably month and a half, we're going to be migrating from one web page for both of the capital projects to 2 separate web pages, one for Treasury and one that will be really promoting the upcoming HUD opportunities, and where we'll share information as things evolve with that program. We are already getting questions. People are ready to get started, and we're just not ready to answer those questions. We don't want to give answers that aren't accurate. And the HUD guidance is very dense and very detailed. So thank goodness Mark is here and has lots of experience with granting funds. And so we'll be working on that together and working with with support from colleagues in Guidehouse on our processes as well.
How much are the funds for the HUD?
The HUD funds are $10 million.
10 million. Okay.
Yeah.
For the state. Okay.
For the state. And that's through the
Right.
congressionally directed spending process. Also in 2022, Senator Leahy's office supported us in, they were getting a lot of requests for less than $1 million through congressionally directed spending, and they suggested that the department apply for some money to support libraries in Vermont with smaller requests. And so we applied for $10 million. And during that big storm in December of 2022, just as the power went out, I saw a news release about the budget passing at the federal level. And that's how I found out, hey, I think that's our money. I think we're in that list. And so there we were. And, you know, to my knowledge, that's the first time the department has had congressionally directed spending, at least in 20 years, but probably ever. And so this is a great opportunity for us, but it was a little surprised to find out it was through HUD and to look at all of those regulations and how very different it is from Treasury. So we really need to dial it in and understand the parameters of that program before we communicate with the public about it. One thing we're going to do to improve the process is that we will, for those who are applying, is that we plan to get the whole grant award documentation packet finalized before we launch the program. There were a lot of pieces over the summer that we were working on that do take time with the going back and forth between the state and the federal entities. And so we hope that there will be a shorter amount of time between when people apply and when a decision is made, which I think the community would appreciate. And that's one of our goals, is that now that I understand that process better, I can include that in the planning. So that's kind of the type of thing that we're learning as we do this. And again, if there are more opportunities for funding, we will continue to apply for them. I've heard that the Institute of Museum and Library Services is conducting a study of the need nationwide, and that study was legislatively compelled. So perhaps there will be other opportunities for libraries in our country, and we'll want to be positioned to administer any money that we can find. I see Linda's got a hand up.
Linda,
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, as on the board, I'm on the board of the Weston Library and the Wilder Memorial Library in Weston, and we were the recipients of one of these grants in order to put a bathroom in our 200-year-old building, as well as expand. And we are just so thankful for the gift and for the grant and for all the work that you at the Department of Libraries did. You and Mark, we were on the phone with Mark any number of times. Thank you for your patience, Mark. And just think it's a terrific program, and I'm so pleased that we were one of the recipients, and grateful that there was enough money to give to 14 other libraries who are looking to improve their facilities. So thank you very much for your great work.
Thanks, Linda.
before you were asking that you wanted running water, but nature provided that and you didn't really like that plan. So this
Well,
is
that's
much better.
true. Yes, yes,
Yes.
that's a very good point. The floods were not quite as helpful as we would have hoped.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really a challenge. One of the things that the department is aware of now through some of the great data collection that Josh Muse does, I think you all are aware, but we participate in the Institute of Museum and Library Services Public Library Public Library Survey. It's the PLS. And every year Josh beats the bushes and tries to get libraries to respond to our survey, which helps us to kind of get a snapshot of what it's like out there in public libraries in our state and how our public libraries compare in all different dimensions with libraries across the country. And one thing that we've added to the PLS is a question about how old the library building itself is. And I think that at one point there was a survey that we had I think 119, 120 respondents to, and the mean age of the libraries, gosh, Josh, you can scream if I'm getting this wrong from the other room. I think it was the median age of the libraries was 1912. So we're really looking at lots and lots of libraries that are older. And some of our counties have buildings that have a median age of even older than that. So I believe in Caledonia County, for example, the median year that those libraries opened was in the 1890s. And we have a kind of a heat map of library age in the working group report section on the facilities. So there's a high degree of need for funding to maintain libraries and to update libraries. And then of course, considering, you look at a library that was first opened in the beginning of the 1900s, and what did they provide at that library at that time versus what we do in a library now. So really bringing libraries up to today's standards. And so it's really amazing and really fulfilling for me. And I'll segue to the next section of the report. When I get to visit Vermont's libraries, and even in libraries that are not modern, where the buildings are older, we see amazing work being done. We see people who are really, even in our rural communities, are really familiar with what to do in a library today, the important role that libraries play as the community center, the programming needs of the community. One of the libraries, Tom, Frank, you'll be happy to know I have finally visited the Barton Library up in I'm going to get my counties wrong. That's up in Orleans County. Tom McMurdo and I were up there, and wow, small library, older library, enormously well-loved library. The public meeting room space on the lower level, Tony, the library director, she must have read to me for 10 minutes from a list of what they provide in that meeting room in a week. Everything from weekly dinners on, I think, Friday nights, they have like a potluck dinner for the community. Their regular story times that you expect, knitting that you'd probably expect, book groups, but the numbers of attendees were quite high. AA meetings of course, the Board of Trustees, but then also key stakeholders in town. It was really pretty impressive. And I've got to say, Tony also had a quiz component to my visit. So if anybody gets up to Barton and visits that library, please, if you are going to mention that you're from the Board of Libraries, before you go, visit your nearby children's library, public library, go to the children's area and review some of the picture books, because the teenagers in the community have all painted oil paintings that are on display of everything from Goodnight Moon to Winnie the Pooh. And she literally quizzed me on this in front of a reporter. So it's really quite entertaining. But I passed you'll be happy to know I passed the quiz. Yeah, but we've been
Elephant and Piggy.
Oh, Elephant and Piggy. There was no Elephant and Piggy yet, but maybe coming soon. But that same library director just down the road in Glover is also the Glover Public Library director. And that library has a completely different vibe, a completely different feel to it, and a completely different way that they provide service unique to their community. And so it's really inspiring, I'd say, to visit libraries around the state. So I'm happy to report that I got out to the Northfield Library with Jeanette and with Jonathan Clark, who's joined us now on the call, our youth services librarian. We were there in August when we were at we were participating in the Washington County for a Day events that the governor has been putting on. And then I went with Joy Warland, who's our consultant for small and rural libraries and continuing education. We went to Lower Waterford to the Davies Memorial Library, to Peacham, and to Barnet. And those libraries in Caledonia County were a lot of fun to visit, but were very different. The Davies Memorial Library they think that they are the only honor system library in the state. They're very curious to find out if that is true, but basically folks get a card and then they go in. It's not there, they can use the collection and use the materials. And they have an honor system of checking out their own materials, and then they can return the materials as well. And so that's really a neat way that they've expanded access to the library space, even on the hours when their limited staffing is not available. The Barnet Public Library was also notable, probably most of all because the director there described themselves as Weird Barbie and the public library as Weird Barbie's public library. And that was just a real joy to visit with them. And Joy and I spent much longer than we had planned to at that library, because when we walked in, someone was asking if they could borrow a cider press. And then there was it was as if we were in a sitcom, and the different folks in the community walking in and asking their different questions, and with just one staff member there to talk with us and help them. We really got a taste of what it's like to live in Barnet. So it's been wonderful to visit places. And then finally, most recently, Tom McMurdo and I went up to the Haskell Library in Derby Line. That's my second time visiting there, and that's right on it's a cross-country library, which is really neat. It sits right on the Canadian border. And we also went up to North Troy, the Rand Memorial Library. And then that was the day we visited Barton and Glover as well. So we really got around. And we also were able to visit North Country High School, which has been in tent structures, including a very modest library collection of one book truck of materials in a tent with some computers. They're moving back indoors. I just read online yesterday. So their library woes will be resolved, I'm hoping, because hopefully they'll be able to get back into the library again when they go back in the building on the 15th of October. So we'll continue going out to these Capital for a Day events. And I'm realizing that some of you who live in different parts of the state may wish to join us. So Jess, it would be great if we can forward the Capital for a Day events to the board in case anybody wants to join us as we visit libraries. The next thing on the report is to share with you an update about our Able Library. And so we are really focusing on working with our Able Library patrons to update their patron records. And Tom Frank is the chair of our Able Library board, so is aware of this. But I wanted to just mention it to everybody on the Vermont Board of Libraries. Our Able Library has nearly 1,000 patrons, and we have reached out to every one of them to ask them to confirm their patron privacy choices in writing. And that is in order to really get updated records for them and be sure that they are comfortable with sharing their library records with the National Library Service. So we're a network library here in Vermont that serves patrons who are blind or have print disabilities that they require materials in different formats. And we do that kind of in concert with the National Library Service. So we are the local public library service for people who have this need and are eligible for services. So the questions that we're asking folks are to just really be sure that we have updated records for them about that they have given permission for us to share their patron information, that they have a library record with National Library Service. the default setting in the catalog has been to retain reading history. So really checking with folks, do you want your reading history retained or not? Because some people may opt not to. That reading history is really helpful for folks who can't physically browse a shelf and look at the cover of the book and flip through it easily and say, oh yeah, I've read this one before. I know I don't always remember if I've read a book and I can get pretty far into it. So this helps with the algorithm that recommends titles to folks as well. And then also, many of our able library patrons need or would like assistance from family members, friends, or others in helping to interface with the digital aspects, the online aspects of the catalog, or even just talking to our able library staff. So making sure that they've authorized that in writing. It does have to be in writing per statute to comply with all of our state patron privacy laws, so that it may take a little time for us to hear from everyone. We started the engagement a few weeks ago, and from what I understand, we've heard from about 320 folks, and for the most part, they're leaving their privacy preferences as is. But if there are any who don't feel comfortable sharing their records with the National Library Service, we will find alternate ways to serve them and provide them with materials. And for those who don't wish to have their reading history retained, we will do readers advisory service for them kind of on a one-on-one basis rather than by an algorithm. So while we're in the process of doing that, I also want to mention that the privacy rights of all of our able libraries are really important to us at the department, and that includes children who are 12 through 18 years of age. And I think that all of the board members are aware that our state statute around library patron records has been updated effective July 1st. And that also pertains to the children who are ages 12 and up who have records at the able library. Completely separate from what's going on in Vermont with lowering that age, the National Library Service has recently issued a directive that they are requiring a parent or guardian signature for all youth under the age of 18. So you can see there's a bit of a conflict with our state statute and that federal program's policy. So I just want to let you know that that is something that we are working to resolve, and that our staff will, of course, follow state statute as we are compelled to do. We would, any solutions that we develop will be mindful of the statute and our obligation to protect the privacy of children ages 12 and up those youth have the right to have a library card without needing a parent to approve it here in our state. And so we're continuing to work on that with the National Library Service. And then finally, we're in budget season time. So if you're noticing me looking frazzled or worried, that could be why. Because of course, as we know, it's a tough budget season this year. And just for some perspective about our budget, our 2025 budget comprises roughly 56% general funds and 38% federal funds through the LSTA, Library Services Technology Act Grants to States program, which is administered by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And then we also have some donor designated funds. The most significant one of those is the Smith Fund, which is really specific to youth services. And we've been asked to keep within a 3% increase, which I am sure you can imagine is a challenging thing to do given the escalating costs of staffing, benefits, salaries and benefits for staff, work orders with other departments. For example, when I got all of the Board of Libraries members, the partner.gov emails, there's a bill that comes with that, which is it was a little bit of a surprise to find out that each of you Board of Libraries members we pay for each of you to have desktop support, even though you don't have desktops, which was a surprise and a shock. So I've been kind of raising those concerns and trying to get more reasonable pricing on our ADS costs, for example, because none of you have been issued laptops. So you don't need to call ADS for help.
Hopefully they're not double charging for.
No, you're not being double charged. Since you have your state of Vermont account, Adrian is the one board member who doesn't have the partner.gov
Right, and I have my
account.
own laptop, yeah.
Yeah, so when we think about the work orders and the things that constantly rise just naturally over time, including our contracts, this is a bit of a challenging exercise for our leadership team. And one thing to just bear in mind is that we never know our federal allocation in time for the state budget preparation. So we always are working on a projection or an estimate. And at times it seems as though that estimate has been more of a spending authority, where our department has in the past appeared to have more money than it actually does get from LSTA. And it's important to bear in mind that our allocation from LSTA has actually decreased slightly, which is it's only a decrease of a few $1,000s, but it does not increase year over year over year. And that's just something to remember and for us to really articulate during the budget process to folks, that we can't count on that federal funding to go up and up and up and up. And it has been tough, I think, to project because during COVID, the IMLS funding was supplemented with ARPA funds. And so that did throw off some projections. So I'll keep you updated about our progress in the budget space. And then finally, just to Tom Frank's earlier point, we do anticipate we'll have a vacancy in calendar year 25, as Tom has fulfilled the service of his appointment. And so we will go through the same process that we have done in the past, most recently when we filled the positions on the board by really spreading the word through word of mouth, but then really also leveraging the state's website and announcements and really posting the job opportunity in a way, posting it more similarly to a recruitment for a position, which has yielded us a number of super new board members, and we're really looking forward to that. We can time that strategically. So if we have anything still in progress in January, Tom has generously offered that he could stay another meeting or few, so we don't have to rush and scramble right this second, given everything that's going on right at this moment. I would appreciate that if we could start that search maybe in the new year. So I'm going to open it up for members of the board who wish to take questions, if that's okay with our chair, or who wish to ask questions.
Yes, please. Hey, making sure you can have time to get off to your meeting at noon there. So, yep. Somebody
James
have one
has-
hand. Yep.
Yeah, James has his hand up.
James.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I was just wondering, is there a time frame to replace April Shaw, who I'm sad is leaving too, but I'm just sort of wondering, is she going to be replaced, or is that going to be a position that just disappears?
Oh, the position will not disappear. We will be posting it for recruitment when it becomes vacant. Her supervisor is Tom McMurdo, and Tom has begun looking at the position. Sometimes we update the language in the job posting just to make sure that it's all consistent with the current duties. So that should be posted, I would imagine, by the end of this month. We have no plan to cut any positions in the department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, James.
Okay, there's two other hands raised there. That's it. One of you just speak up. That's fine.
Yeah, Linda has their
Linda.
hand up.
Oh, can you hear me? I'm both
Yes.
on my phone and on the screen.
We
Because
gotcha.
I was having internet. But Kathy, I know how much work the grants, the whole grants process took for you all, and that you have done some additional hiring. You have the new grant, the HUD grant coming up for you, and you're talking about the budget process. I'm sensitive to how much this is putting on your plate. And while we're all grateful for the grants, wonder if there's some relief for you in sight and for your staff. You know, I don't know if some of the grant money can be used to hire more people, if that would even be helpful. I'm just concerned with, you know, how much you're doing, which is all wonderful for libraries in the state, but it's a lot.
Well, Linda, thank you for voicing that concern. It's something that is top of mind for me and for Tom and Jeanette, and I'm sure top of mind for staff. We're all kind of doing many things at once. You know, all of this that we've talked about today isn't even touching on the regular things we're doing. So imagine that right now, Mackenzie Boyle, who you can see on the call, Mackenzie's processing courier grants at full tilt right now. And April had just been getting the word out about those grants and really, you know, making sure people keep up with that regular activity. Both Mark McClary's position and the grant specialist position are additive. They're both limited service positions funded by the 2 federal grant programs. That's why we're not granting out administrative funds to the libraries, because we're using administrative funds here at the department to boost our staffing complement, our staffing cohort, so that we can work on these projects. And I do think that the 2 positions, now that they'll both be staffed, should be sufficient for us to do that work. And I think that overall, we're really trying to streamline processes and kind of set up systems so that our day-to-day work is a little bit more routinized and a little bit less surprising and shocking. So I think when I first came, it was kind of like, I felt a little bit like whack-a-mole or like a cat, just like, oh, push that away, sign that. But our business team, our business unit, and our 2 assistant state librarians have really been working hard to understand all of the aspects of our budget, understand, to really, it's not sexy, Linda, but, you know, code the invoice right the first time, really work on all of these kind of bureaucratic processes and understand how things impact us, and really try to kind of focus on the core responsibilities that we have in statute. It is a lot of work to do the capital projects, and especially that full year that we really didn't have staff on hand to do it, and lots of people pitched in to help. And I think we'll be in a better position now, but I do take your point that we should be careful with capacity. And one thing that is really important for me is making sure our staff have some life-work balance. And I appreciate it when folks remind me I also need to take a vacation. So it is really important to really bear in mind, what can we do and what can we continue to do? You know, if we were to look for additional funding, we probably wouldn't do it while both of these programs were up and running. We might look to continue in the future. You know, we didn't ask for more congressionally directed spending through the most recent processes, for example. But I think if this were to become something that we did regularly, then it would be best to have regular staff rather than limited service positions for more continuity.
Hopefully you won't be living in the legislature this year.
Yeah, that was last session was quite challenging, I think, because it was we had the bill that became Act 150 that it was a little unprecedented, and we didn't necessarily have capacity to plan for that. And I do think that the legislative session did impact my ability. You know, you can only focus on so many things for so many hours. And I think that it did, you know, the legislative work was important, the capital grants were important, and it did take quite a lot of effort from our full team. And I do want to thank the staff. The consultants were really engaged in the legislative process this past year. And we have consultants working on activities still related to the legislative process. So Jonathan's been working with me and Jeanette to develop a survey related to early childhood literacy needs that are apparent throughout the state, and that the legislature really wants to look at the book gifting space and see, are there programs that might be a good fit for the department? or for the state to support emerging readers, the youngest readers, like the 0 to pre-K kids. So I am writing a report that will be submitted. It's due mid-January. So that's also happening right now. And we're about to, I think we're about to launch the survey of public libraries in the state, and then also a survey of state libraries around the country to see what types of programs they administer, what the costs are, and importantly, Linda, what the staffing capacity is. Because when people talk about just adding a new gift program, it sounds great if you're on the receiving end of a book in the mail or a grant award, but there is a finite capacity that our team has to do this work. And we have 18 full-time staff and we have 2 limited service staff. So we really have to think about what's most important, what can the state really afford, and what's the actual staff time and costs to the department. Sometimes things sound really good, but they don't end up being very cost effective, and they can have costs you don't anticipate. And Jonathan, thank you. Kevin Unrath has also been helping with the survey for the report, building the survey out for us, which is really helpful. And April helped by pulling my interlibrary loan requests for the literature reviews. So yeah, the consultants have been really stepping up to support the department as we're really being engaged a lot. The legislature's been very interested in libraries, and the press has been interested in libraries, and that's because Vermonters are interested in supporting their libraries and improving service. So we see that rather than being something that doesn't matter, and maybe people might think, oh, well, we don't need that department anymore. It's actually the opposite. We're quite important, and the work that our team is doing is really important.
Okay, there was another hand up too, or 2 at one time. Anybody other questions for Kathy?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment on the grants. I've been enjoying, I'm on that listserv for the trustees and the friends still, and I just see all these great comments and stories about what they've been doing for their library with the grant and how everybody is so happy, and it really cheers my day up when I read one of those. It's just great.
But things are getting done, and you have Jess too, hopefully. You're not going anywhere, are you, Jess?
Get that in the minutes. Where'd you
No,
go?
I'm not. For the record, it's on.
Put that in the record, yes.
Yeah, we're really fortunate that we have so many folks who are behind the mission of the department. And sometimes it's not the most glamorous. If you came to one of our meetings when we're sitting around talking about, oh, we should set some goals. This is what it says in this target for the strategic plan for LSTA, and this is the state strategic plan. The challenge is everybody, there's this idea of this constant growth. And when you don't have more money and you don't have more staff, constantly growing isn't necessarily achievable because the team is already working full tilt and already has refined the processes and kind of dialed in how they do the work. So we're a pretty smart bunch, I would say. Like the whole team is very sharp. And the idea of like, oh, just work smarter. Like, I don't know if we can work much smarter. So
we're already there.
Yeah, it's hard to have this perpetual, like, what will you grow? And it's almost comic when, there's an opportunity for, new proposals. It's like, we can't do new proposals. We can do these proposals. We can do it well. We can focus on this work that we do. That said, there's a very real possibility that some additional funding for youth services is going to come to the department for youth services. Probably for a competitive grant for youth services programming in public libraries, which is the Winnie Bell Learned Fund, is very likely to move from the Vermont Public Library Foundation over to the department in the coming year. So that's something to just know, like, we're also trying to build capacity to put that into our processes and getting that calendarized, and then the work of moving that fund, which the VPLF is interested in moving to the department so that work has begun. And as the VPLF president and as the department head, that's a space that I'm trying to work on as well.
And Karen is her other half, only half-time director at the Able Library, the other half working with prisons and colleges and everything. Yeah.
Super important.
I can't believe I didn't mention this. The book deliveries for the prisons are in progress, and Karen's team ordered we allocate $36,000 for correctional facility collections annually, and the materials from last year have begun arriving. And Vance, who is one of our team members in Info and Access, Vance has been taking the van and driving the materials to the correctional facilities and helping to unload the boxes and get books into the hands of people there who really rely on those materials. So that's something that's been happening too. If you're trying to envision everything going on in the department, good luck. I do want to mention another couple of shout outs. Lauren has, we did have an opportunity to add to our Vermont collection. Our collection of Vermont materials, but specifically our collection of materials related to the 250th commemoration of our country. So everything that happened in the Revolutionary War time is really going to become kind of front page news again as our state moves into the 250th commemoration. And I'm a commissioner on the 250th commission. And one of our colleagues, the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Officer, Laura Treichman in ACCD, Laura was able to secure $15,000 for books to support Vermonters in learning about the Revolution. And Lauren Kelly has been, first there was figuring out how many of the books we would get and how we would, how we would allocate them, with some physical books, some ebooks. So then the ordering of the books and now the cataloging of the books is going on as the books are arriving. And so that will be funded with a one-time appropriation. And Lauren has been just spreadsheeting it up. She has a multicolored spreadsheet. That's quite a joy to look at. And she's been really excited as the books are coming in. So we'll be promoting that more heavily in the coming months after the materials are cataloged.
So that's in this department. It's not being distributed to other libraries.
We decided that because it felt a little bit like, $15,000 is a lot, but it's not enough to give
equitably to everyone.
Yeah, it would have had to be competitive, and that would have caused a lot of extra work for us to do competitive grants. So what we're doing is we're sending materials out. We are supplementing our collection where we don't have 5 copies of the title. And then the physical materials will be available through interlibrary loan, and the digital materials, ebooks and the audiobooks will be available through the PALIS app. So that's how we're supporting that. Linda?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of follow up on my earlier comment and thank you for your response. It's astonishing how much the Department of Libraries does, and we keep adding great ideas to you all the time. But Tom and I were the other day how you, Kathy, your bureaucratic ability, and that's a compliment actually, your ability to organize and keep track of details is helping enormously, I'm sure, helping your staff and helping get through a lot of this work. And I'm relative outsider on observing all of that, but just your attention to the bylaws of this Board of Libraries, for example. I mean, who cares? But you are attention to those details, and thank you very much for that. And good luck.
Thank you, Linda. I think for me, I like to make sure that the processes are clear, and it sometimes feels a little bit like who cares, right? But then, and Adrian, this is, when we're looking at the bylaws and it says that the secretary does X, Y, and Z, and then on the other hand, open meeting law says, the board does this, to align those like you all did today is so appreciated, because then I have one set of marching orders. My team can do one thing. We're not doing more than is required of us. We're still providing access. So I think for me, those that's how we're trying to work smarter, is just to kind of clarify, like, where are we doing something extra, or where are we taking steps that we don't need to take? You know, if you're gonna run a mile, don't run to the, you know, corner store and then run around the track, like just.
Streamline was the
It
word.
really,
used.
thank you, streamline.
Well, that was your word.
Yeah. But I appreciate that the board is really supportive of that effort and that the library community understands it. You know, there's some things we've stopped doing in the past year, for example, you know, Fiber Connect. That hopefully in the long run, we'll feel some relief from not supporting that program and not worrying about that program. So in some ways, we need to build the capacity of the public libraries to take on responsibilities and to take on tasks locally in order to unload some of it from us. So that continuing education piece that Joy is always working on with other members of the team, and, you know, Kevin's support for library boards. I think he was online with the Petrum board last night. You know, those things that our staff are doing to build capacity at the public libraries could help us in some way, I think, over time as well. So everything everyone's doing contributes to this success, but it is a lot, and we do feel tired sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, concerns from anybody? If not, I think that's about it. We didn't have anything else on the agenda. And again, thank you, Kathy. As Linda said, and I've told Kathy directly, you're a great bureaucrat. Meaning,
I should get a t-shirt.
because she checks with the, well, you know, we're doing this and that. Well, the law says we need to do that. We're not doing that, like providing money that we're the state librarian for the prisons. And that wasn't done, for example. That's why I brought that up. And, oh, what are we supposed to be doing? And the law says, no, we don't have to do that. You know, that's extra work. So don't do it. Yeah. So I think that's great. And we're following the law, and we're, and it's great. So I can leave, see, the best thing to be is ex-chair of something, because if things go right, you said, see, I helped set the policy and the procedures up there. If it goes well, if it goes bad, you say, well, I would have done it differently. What can I say? So you accept all the credit and defer all the blame. Yeah, that's fun.
Well, if I can add one additional thing, I do want to say that the board has really, since I arrived, been encouraging me to really look at the capacity and look at what we can do, and to look at dealing with things that we might have just kind of moved to the side in the past. And I want to thank, toward that, and I want to thank Tom Frank, and prior to Tom, Adrian Katz, for stepping up to serve on the Vermont Public Library Foundation. You know, with their support as board members, we've really been moving toward granting out funds from VPLF. And this isn't the department's work, but the VPLF, which has Tom, Jeanette Schaefer, and I as board members, has actually granted out $125,000 recently to the 5 libraries in Vermont that have the highest need, or the highest ranking on the Vermont Community Index for capital projects. And that was money that had been long in a bank account. So really just needed to get out the door. And so that's something that has recently taken place in those libraries, which have very little capacity to raise funds to fix a leaky roof, or to repoint their siding, or whatever they may be doing with that funding related to their capital projects. That helps to really kind of focus down. The last remaining place where money is still coming in is Winnie the Learned for Vermont Public Library Foundation. The other money has been granted out as we would want it to have been granted out, as the donors wanted it to be granted out. Yeah. So I do think in the long run, we'll have less of a wide portfolio, and we're really trying to just concentrate down with your guidance. So board members, if sometimes you wonder what you're doing you're actually doing quite a lot by guiding me to winnow and to focus. So thank you.
Yeah. It's exciting to go out and see in the public libraries, to see the Whitney Bell Learned, to see a little sign that there's a new makerspace in the Brownell Library. And yeah, it made that possible. It's very exciting. And then I did have a follow-up question, Tom, for Kathy, that what else can we do for you as board members that would be helpful to you? And you can think about that too, but.
Well, I think one topic for us to think about in 2025, and so start thinking about it now, is really the relationship between guidelines that the department will be putting out in the future for library service, the relationship between guidelines and grant funds, the service hours that how we make guidelines, things of that nature. I think that we'll be coming forward with some proposals because we're now empowered through statute to make recommendations for library service, perhaps by tier. So those are some things I think in the new year that we'll be wanting some input from board members about and from the public about. And then, if there's a guideline, what does it mean? Is it a requirement for grant funding? Or is it, right now we've not had it be a requirement for non-competitive grants. Do we keep that model or do we really encourage people to add library service hours by making it a requirement? Those are things to think about. And those are big things to grapple with, I think, pros and cons on both sides.
Yeah, and they've been struggling with that. That hasn't been updated for years, and
Yeah,
you have to learn and be guided. Will be guided well as well. The board, you will be guided well in making sure what is guidelines and what you can require.
Yeah, and I think for us, we'll just be setting. We didn't request rulemaking authority, and in fact, I asked the legislature to remove rulemaking authority because a department doesn't really have the authority to say you're going to pay this per capita in library service. That's not really appropriate in the same way that we could do some benchmarking and recommending because the municipalities have the authority to determine how they spend their budgets, but we can recommend things and we can set different levels of requirements for eligibility for grants that are competitive, particularly. So those are just things to think about in the future.
And
And
that
discuss.
landscape is complex, being some are municipally funded, some are hybrid, some are independent nonprofit.
Yeah.
So it sounds like special committees. Yeah.
Okay, then.
Oh, James
There's
has
James.
his hand
Yes,
up.
James.
Oh, yeah, I just have one quick point, and that is, as you were just now talking, it reminded me that some of the small libraries pretty much almost have, I could be wrong about this, but a volunteer actually who comes in as the librarian or some version of a volunteer, a mixture of someone who's working a minimal number of hours and then just people who come in from the community to volunteer to fill in other hours. And that seems like it would be kind of difficult to set guidelines for, when I guess the object might be to make sure that a person doesn't make too much money because they won't qualify for Medicaid. It sounds like it could get kind of complicated, certain kinds of guidelines for funding.
Or the new unemployment law where 3 people in the staff, that used to be not a requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, James, your recollection is correct that there are libraries that have very limited staff and that rely, and others, there are even examples of libraries that rely entirely on volunteers. And so, the department's recommendations for those libraries that serve the smallest communities would be different than recommendations for the libraries that serve larger communities. And that was something we heard through the working group, the idea of these tiered libraries. I do think it's always in the best interest of the public library to have a paid library director and to have at least a staff member that is responsible for the library. So, there are some things that are quite challenging to do when it's just a group of volunteers doing things. And I know, I think everybody on the board has experience, on our board of libraries has experience as a board member or trustee of a public library. And so I know that you all are very intimately familiar with what it takes to run a library. And, it's really there, it looks very different in different communities in Vermont. And that's something that's challenging to kind of set one standard for everyone. So I think that would probably, the idea of doing a tiered approach would probably be the most productive in our state, thinking about different service sizes, number of community members served.
Okay. So anyway, I thank everybody for attending, and we'll see everybody back in January the 2nd. Yeah, this is the 8th. Yes, the 2nd Tuesday in January. And thank everybody for attending. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I
I
can
move
make
that
a
we
motion.
adjourn.
And cacophony of voices.
Yeah,
Gets it.
James gets it, and is there a second?
Yeah, second.
I'll second. Linda.
Okay, we got to pick one there. And I will say, which is always in all of my meetings, they say, Tom, you're supposed to say, this motion is not up for debate. It's a non-debatable motion. So all in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 And anybody opposed could just hang on teams until Jess shuts or Tom shuts everybody off. Yes. Okay. Once again, thank you very much. And Karen, warning, I need to call you about something for our advisory meeting next week. So I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
take care, everybody.